and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Now, Malaysia has long prided ourselves on being a multiracial, multicultural society, but recent incidents of discrimination and insensitivity have reignited concerns about heightened racial and religious tensions. Now, are these cases becoming more frequent, or are we just more aware of them now? And when ethno-religious tensions flare, how should we respond? Well, joining me on the show to think this through with us is Dewan Negara Senator Datuk Seri Dr. Mujahid Yusof Rawa, who is also the Deputy President of Parti Amanah, Negara. He served as Minister of Religious Affairs in the Prime Minister's Department during the Pakatan Harapan administration of 2018, and he had also been appointed recently Deputy Chair of the recently established Malaysian Parliamentary Cross-Party Group on Racial and Religious Harmony. And way back when in 2012, he was previously a member of the Unity Consultative Council. So Datuk Seri, welcome to the show. It's good of you to have you here.
Thank you very much.
You have a lot of experience with interfaith dialogue, so I feel you are well positioned to talk about this. And you surely must agree that we've seen quite a lot of these instances lately of religious and racial tensions being highlighted in Malaysia. There are some who say this is a deeper problem, so they're concerned about it, it's a worrying issue. There are those who, on the other side, say, well, actually, it's just social media amplifying these cases. I'm curious to know what you think, Datuk Seri. What's your assessment of the current situation?
Well, the irony of the problem that we're discussing today, Melissa, is that after 60 more years or more years of independence, we are still stuck in this, vicious circle of hatred, prejudice. So we should be getting more matured in our racial relationship. But I think it's not all worse. There are people in our society who believe in multiracial society. And it's just that sometimes because the racial unity is not really that strong, we tend to get affected by certain incident that took place. Now, incident takes place even before this, but what we are facing today, the problem is there are people who instigate that event and turn it into a racial and hatred inclination, rather than looking that as an incident. So it's just an incident. So in Malaysia, we are dragged with racial incident, which did not in the first place has any intention to diminish or to look down upon other religion, but because we are living in the world of tensions, racial tensions, religious tensions, so all this incident that took place will automatically be viral to that orientation, while we could have solved that problem easily. But because the environment is in a such, unfortunately, the environment is in a such that any little thing that happened in an event, which has got nothing to do actually, but will spur into a racial or religious tension. But having said that, it doesn't mean that we are free to do anything we like, just on the pretext that it's not my intention. Living in a harmonious society begs us to be more sensitive, begs us to be more concerned about how other people feel when we do such acts, behavior, even though it is in a joking manner or just a social manner, but you should be more sensitive. After living 60 years or more of racial harmony, I don't believe any Malaysian would just, put themselves into trouble by, thinking that their words, their action will not affect the multiracial society, especially when you are in the center of, people are looking at you and you have some certain position in the society. And I think, as you said, you rightly mentioned, Melisa, that social media do play a role, and everyone will have all the access. What happened in the era, for example, room. Before, we don't care what happened in the room, but because of the social access, where a little bit of behavior, which was not intention, but can turn and spur into racial tension. So this is what I think. I would also say, Melisa, that it's not just social.
Right.
It's also, there are people, group of people who are still in a denial state, where they are just waiting to, you know, wait any moment of any event, then they would use that to their own racial interest.
You mean they exploit any racial incident?
Exploit any racial incident. And of course, then in the social media, you cannot control people giving comments. Things can get viral. And sometimes what happened or transpired in that event could be interpreted into another way of understanding it that leads to this racial hatred, prejudice, and all that.
Can I ask you, Datuk Seri? So often when there are incidences like this, sometimes, as you said, there's all of a sudden, overnight, so much attention, right? It's gone viral. Social media attention, then the national media picks it up, and then politicians feel like they have to weigh in.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it becomes not just racialized, but then politicized.
Yeah.
Is there a danger of when politicians step in with the maybe intention of tempering the heightened emotions or saying something to put a stop to it?
Yeah.
Is there a danger or a risk of it inflaming the situation even more?
Well, Melisa, it depends on how that politician intervene. If that particular politician intervene in a manner which will spark more hatred, then the thing is you are taking a risk to you know, drag the thing into more dangerous situation. But if a politician comes in to you know, tone down and to give more perspective towards what is happening, and most of all to have this thinking of trying to get all the people in one as a Malaysian, I think that would help, not to say solve the problem, that could cool off the heat.
So you think that some politicians in a kind of level-headed manner to step in actually can help the situation?
Well, in the Malaysian context, you know, the society do not like politicians. The deficit of trust in the politicians are quite high. Unfortunately, I'm a politician myself. But in as far as the deficit of trust to the politician, yes, there have been a clear sign of decline of that trust. But nevertheless, I think politicians should play the role within their context and to look into the problem as a you know, as a way out on how Malaysians should live, on how Malaysians should respect one another. And having said that, as I said again, I would like to reiterate that it doesn't mean you can say what you want. There are certain boundaries where you have to abide by the code of conduct, if I might say, in terms of what you say, because racial slurs happen sometimes within our social conversation. But maybe what is the most important thing is, what is the intent of such words when you utter it? Is that intention to create hatred, prejudice, or is that just an intention just to make jokes or anything? That's why in the definition of racial hatred, it's not just about what you say, but it is important about what is your intent, number one. Number two is the repetition of it. Repeating it all over again means that your intention is not just conversation, but you intend to do something that could affect the multiracial environment. That leads me to the third factor, that is, whatever you converse in a form of repetition, and it has effect to the larger society, where there are an element of incitement, hatred, and that could lead to maybe you know, a violent reaction. And as you know today, violence could mean two. There's a physical violence, but there is also the non-extremism violence. Non-violent extremism means to say it's not about their physical action, but what they write in the social media, online. That is also considered as violence in terms of there is non-violence, you know, racial sort of action. Okay. So these are the things which I believe at the end of the day, all Malaysians, regardless of who they are, where they come from, number one, they should be considering themselves when they speak, when they act, when they behave, they should think themselves as a Malaysian. Number two, think before you say how it could affect others in terms of your intention. And number three, you know there are laws that regulates all these racial tensions, so be careful, be more sensitive, be more concerned. But that doesn't mean that you have to be, thinking before you saying it. No, you can be doing it spontaneously. But
until it becomes second nature, right? So almost like
something like that,
almost like a Malaysian code of conduct.
Something like that.
You know, so you talked about kind of 3 key points or criteria when to consider when these types of incidences happen. So intent, repetition, and the way it affects. So when someone makes a racist remark, for instance, it may not be their intention to offend. Nevertheless, it does offend. It hurts a group of people.
Right.
And because the intention was not to hurt or harm, there's a public apology. There's always a kind of contrition that's put forward. But a lot of people think that's not real accountability. That's just damage control. On the flip side, I'm wary of this culture of punishment or braying for blood, if I may use that. They want firings, they want police action, they want harsher consequences. How do we consider that, weighing that delicate balance of should a society focus on education and rehabilitation and growing as opposed to punishment and deterrence? How do you think about it, Datuk Seri?
Well, you raise a very good question. I am not a total believer of law and regulation, although I am a legislative and a lawmaker. But we do believe that such social phenomena like this that we are talking about comprises of many elements in it. You rightly mentioned about culture, for example. What is it that our culture is so entrenched in hatred, for example? What is it that our culture is so entrenched on hatred, for example? That whatever you do, you must, show that whether you are a pure Malay or you are a pure Indian or pure. Why is that? That's the culture that we're talking about. Okay. Number two is education. As I said, we have been independent for 60 years, but still we are still talking about this issue. Whereby I think we already have education that links racial harmony in our curriculum. Maybe it's not effective, but I think education do play a role here. And also our concern of integration between different races in a school is also something that needs or begs to be really, going through a thorough research, because it seems like we are more now segregated rather than integrated, although we do have that policy. And of course, I, at the same time, believe that although all this place takes in its action properly, for example, culture, education, but there are still people who go against the law. There are still people who persist on their hatred and their prejudices. So this is where the law comes in. It's not the final and the end, but the law is to punish those who have not repent and understand their role.
I see. As a last resort.
As a last resort.
For those who won't change.
Who won't change. Okay. But we can also legislate the law within that context through setting up a commission of national harmony, for example, that need to be, mandated by the legislator. And this commission will look into the matter proactively before it turns out to be a racial tensions and hatred. it can come in before that stage where they can be a mediator.
Oh. Well, why would we need a commission of national harmony when we already have the unity ministry?
But that's the problem. The unity ministry is mandated as a minister, but when you have a law which is education in nature, through this commission, it can affect better, because it will play the role of mediation, it will play the role of negotiation. So, for example, what happened in Teluk Medan a few years back? If this commission were to exist, they can easily get all the people to talk in this commission and give their views on how to solve the problem, rather than letting the incidents prolong, and that's where it gets worse. So the minister, I wouldn't say that it conflicts with the role of the minister, no, but it complements actually. Where would you have rather more, people that can play the role, respected in the society, a politician, a religious, figure, for example. These people can play a better role in this commission. And of course, we also need what we call the racial it's a racial harmony bill. This is punitive in nature. That one is not punitive. That one is education, but mandated as a commission. This one is punitive in a sense that anyone who is playing they call it 3R here, royals, race and religion, they could be punished for such action. But then again, the threshold must be very high.
Must be proven, I understand.
So that it will not be used as an exploitation to such incident, but follow, number one, I repeat, intention, repetition, and how it affects the greater public. If you don't have this threshold, then you cannot be considered or cannot be defined as an act of hatred.
It has to clearly meet those thresholds. I'm curious to know about your time as the Minister of Religious Affairs, 2018 to 2020. Yep. When you were in that role, did you see your office as having a role to play in fostering harmony between races and religions? And I'm curious to know what in hindsight, what did you learn about what works and what doesn't work?
Well, very interesting. I think any minister who holds such position will understand that number one criteria is to have a clear policy. That policy will then interpret in all its activities, in all its statements, in all the activities of its agencies. So if you ask me, as my experience, just a short one, I propose and I use the policy of what we call the compassionate Islam. The compassionate Islam means Islam Rahmah, which simply sees that we should all living in harmony, and we should all take consideration of our multi-religious identity as a means and way to forge our humanity values. And number three is to make sure that all religion play their role to propagate peace, or what we call peaceful coexistence. And it's just that it's exactly what I did during my short tenure as a Minister of Religious Affairs. And within that policy, I also have one Jawatan Kuasa committee which involves all other religion. So we will meet and talk and create that bridge between Islam and other religion in this country, although the Ministry of Unity will play that role again. But being a Minister of Religious Affairs Islam, we want to be more proactive and talk about the compassionate Islam, how it works. And that brought me to the Cambridge University when I gave a lecture on the compassionate Islam in an administration. That brought me to the SDG Summit 2019 to talk about how SDG played that particular role, integrated in that compassionate Islam. So I think by doing so, in my experience, religion do play a vital role in promoting peaceful coexistence. And Islam is so rich to, to propagate peace, because the Prophet was sent to give compassion to all the people, regardless of their race, color, and their creed. So I think religion do play very important role. Religious figure should be promoting peace and not, on the contrary, to instigate fear, hatred, and division, prejudices among different believers.
I'm so glad you brought up proactiveness, because I think that's missing a little bit. A lot of what's happening today, I think, has largely been reactive. So we react when something has happened. We respond to these incidences, and often that's when tensions are running high, emotions are heightened. How do we prevent this? Be proactive about this? Because apart from the vague calls of more understanding and more interfaith dialogue, what do you think, in the time that we have left, can be done systemically to change and prevent these incidences and be proactive about it?
Well, looking into our local context in Malaysia, our federal constitution is sufficient to guide us to this systematically or systemic sort of approach to this. The number two is the political leaders. The political leaders should play the role in promoting peace and not to use their agenda for political purposes, for their own agenda, because people will tend to be more inclined towards racial slurs and hatred, or sentiments and emotion, rather than facts and policies. So I urge all political parties to really be very open to this and make sure that whatever they do in their political activities do not harm the racial relation in this country. And number three is, of course, the people. The people themselves should not, instigate, put oil into the fire, put petrol to the fire. They should, like, for example, you would find bigots everywhere. You would find people who like to flame racial hatred, but leave them alone. Do not join them. Let them speak. Let them talk by themselves, but it's not
Don't amplify them?
Don't amplify them. It's not what is represented by the majority of Malaysians. If we can come to that, I think in conclusion, we can say that our racial relationship should be a model, an example to the world, that in spite of our differences of faith, religion, and also ethnicity, we live in peace, harmony, and respecting one another. And I think Madani comes very effectively, actually, to make sure that thing happen. You have this ihsan, which simply means compassionate. You have hormat, which simply means respect. So I think if we can cultivate more of this value in the society, across the faith, across the ethnicity, I believe the future for racial harmony in Malaysia is not just going to be better, but we could be a very good example to the world, which is now living in a hatred and prejudice and war between different races and religion. So I do hope that the future for our racial relationship will be better, and I believe it is going to be better. But before it can come to that model, we need to manage this little problem that we have, and we hope that it will not take us into something worse, but educate us, we become more mature. And I urge all the people not to instigate any racial slurs or any racial events, and let us all be the Malaysian who love peaceful relationship and living in peace within different religion and different faith in this country.
May cooler heads prevail.
May cooler heads prevail. The issue could be hot, but our head should be cool.
Thank you so much, Datuk Seri, for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Datuk Seri Dr. Mujahid Yusof Rawa there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.